My name is Ryszard Zadow. I've owned a Very Easy since 1983. That's my little Very Easy. So I've been around this stuff a long time, and been around a lot of canard people for a really long time. I just retired from my airline job. That was me at work. The good old days, right? Yeah. So I built my own airport once. Now my ex-wife has it, but I'm real proud of that. I see my name on the chart. It was a great time. It was a 4,000-foot grass strip that I flew my Very Easy off of. So, and really why I took on this project 10 years ago is because I love this quote from Bert. And why do something that you know you can do that's pretty boring? Yeah, so I didn't know I could do any of this stuff. Matter of fact, according to my ex-wife, I could do nothing. So, but anyways, this is the 50th anniversary of the Very Easy. I'm sure most of you have heard that, okay? 50 years, man, that's a long time. And it shows the perseverance of the design and the construction methods and all those things. And a couple years ago was the 50th anniversary of the Very Vegan. My organization, the Rutan Aircraft Flying Experience, has the only remaining flying Very Vegan. It's parked out there on Easy Street, we call it. We brought that up here on the 50th anniversary, and we're here celebrating the 50th anniversary of the Very Easy. And in a couple years, we'll be selling the 50th anniversary of the Long Easy. So all that does is make me feel really old. But I put this up there because anniversaries are, by definition here, an annual recurring date of a past event as of a personal historical importance and all those other things. So, but the operative word there is past, okay? And that's cool. It's great to see things that have been around for a long time. But this forum that we call the Future of Rutan Design Symposium is about the future. So let's take a little look at the past so we can always learn from the past and help define the future. I started this in 2019, which was a big year for us. Bert was here that year, and the first time we got to fly in the air show as an organization and put on what we call the Rutan reunion flight, where we flew all the different types of Bert's airplanes, something never been done here. And I really went out on a limb because, honestly, up until a couple days before this forum, I have no idea usually what we're going to talk about, because my idea here is to get people thinking. And if you're a canard guy, I see a lot of our shirts out there. If you've been around this stuff for 50 years, you probably know why I'm doing this, because I want people to think about what's going to happen in our future. And in 2019, it was something that I've never been able to duplicate. I put a bunch of people up on the stage. They're really smart people. And if you look up there, way over to the left is Robert Harris. And if you know, Robert Harris has been running a shop in Covington, Tennessee for probably 40 years, rebuilding Easies for people, building stuff. That guy knows more about Long Easies and Very Easies than I think Bert does. And I've seen them repair airplanes that you thought would have belonged in a dumpster. And they do a great job. And next to him, well, let's go to the other side. Leonard Mulholland, okay, because I'm going to save the next to him for last. Leonard Mulholland is a friend of mine who in 2019, I think, was 94 years old, walked from Clamp Scholler to come here to speak for us. Leonard designed, I think, 14 or 15 little airplanes, little kind of LSA type things, and is still designing and building, and he's like 90, almost 100 now. And if I asked him to walk here today, he probably still would. But the guy's been around forever, and he knows a lot about designing and selling plans and supporting stuff. Next to him is Dwayne Swing, okay? And Scott's here today to represent that company. And, of course, Dwayne Velocity, you know. We all know who Velocity is. The guy in the middle was an AOPA guy. I can't remember his name right now, I'm sorry. But he was a media guy, so I invited him because he was running around taking video, all that stuff. And I'm one sign of getting old. That name will come to me in a minute. But the last guy that I kind of skipped over, I couldn't even believe I pulled this off. That's Dick Van Grusen, okay? So I asked Dick to come talk to us because obviously the RVs are the most popular home built out there, right? And his input I thought would be really valuable. because he's been doing this for so long, and of course, the Rutan stuff's not been doing it so long. So it was great to have him on board. The year after that, I did another kind of provocative topic, which was canard safety. We also had our insurance lady that we work with, Tracy Martin, come in and talk about insurance, how safety and insurance work together. And one of the things that jumped out at me, if you can go back on the YouTube channel and look at all these, is when we started looking at home-built safety records, despite some of the naysayers out there and the John Denver thing, it turns out when we look at the statistics that they have, and statistics, I was an economics major, you can make statistics say whatever you want, but whatever the statistic data is that out there, the only conclusion you could come with is that Easy's Rutan stuff is right up there even with everybody else. We're no better, no worse. The numbers are I can't even remember what they are, but we're not less safe or more safe than anybody. So we're about average. The only ones that spike that, if you include them in the canard kind of group, are the quickie type airplanes. And the only reason they do that is because of the ground handling issues. So, but that was the conclusion from that, and it was a great forum. In 22, we talked mostly about the Vigan because it was the 50th anniversary and how we got it all put together, and it wasn't really that. It was more of a presentation on that. And in 23, man, I really laid it on the line. I did a presentation about canard values because I started getting frustrated that, especially after COVID, we're watching airplane prices skyrocket, and people seem to keep wanting to insist on giving away their long easies. RVs were selling $150,000, $180,000, and you could buy a long easy for 30, 40, 50 was a good price. And I said, why are we doing this? So going to kind of tie into that a little bit, and in 24 we just start talking about the future and how to make the Rutan stuff survive. So that was kind of where we are at this kind of weird forum that I've been presenting. But what I want to do is go back and look at the canard value one just momentarily, because something happened here recently that, again, just had to get me on my soapbox. So, and this is why. Canard values, like we talked about in SAFE, they tie in with the survivability of the brand. If you get a bad reputation, okay, or your airplane is so cheap that people think it's not very good, okay. The comparison I made in 23 was really simple. I said, suppose you're looking for a Ford F-250, a 10-year-old Ford F-250, and you go out there in the market and you see they're all selling for just arbitrary numbers, $20,000. And then you see one for 10. What's the first thing you think? Yeah, it's what's wrong with it, okay? Can't be as good as the others, right? So you see RVs and all kinds of other airplanes selling for $150,000, $180,000, and you see a long easy for 30. Well, it can't be as good as an RV, right? Okay? And the people that don't know, they don't know, okay? So that ties into a lot. Insurance, okay? You wouldn't think this is true, but a cheap airplane, okay, cheap in value and price, a $30 or $20 or $1,000 or a $10,000 very easy, okay, attracts someone who can barely afford an airplane to begin with. So you think that person, and God bless them, because I was that guy one day, okay, but you think someone buys a $10,000 very easy, and they're going to intend to fly it, but they can't really buy good magnetos or rebuild their carburetor, what's going to happen to them? They wind up in a field somewhere, and even though they may be uninsured, it goes into the statistics, which the actuarials look at and go, oh, these airplanes are high risk, we're not going to insure them, okay? So the more the airplane's value goes up, okay, it changes kind of the demographics of the owners. And listen, I like bargains, everybody does. Barn finds, fire sales, they'll always be there. But that doesn't mean they all have to be that way. So, and safety, we just talked about that. If the values aren't up, the airplanes aren't well maintained, and they wind up in the field. Dick Van Grusen said something very profound, and it's right up there. I did not realize in 19 that he was the chairman of the EA Safety Committee. And most of you guys are too young to remember the old E.F. Hutton commercials. When E.F. Hutton speaks, people listen, okay? Yeah, I see Ken nodding his head, but nobody else. When Dick spoke, it was just like, and he said that. And that really struck a nerve with me. And because that's who we are. Rutan stuff are orphan designs. We have some cottage industry people out there like Robert Harris and Zeitlin and Dale Martin up in Idaho and Free Flight Composites in Denver that support the airplanes, but there's really no company behind this. You can't pick up the phone and say, I need, this. You have to go hunt for it, okay? And you hope you find somebody that's got it or can help you how to get it. And that's a big factor. So in 2019, I threw this thing up here because this is what all started this canard value thing. Something happened that really got me thinking, and I called it the We're Our Own Worst Enemies case study, okay? And I'm kind of preaching to the choir because I know a lot of you guys are in here, but this is worth rehashing because of what recently happened to Rafi. The guy decided to sell his Very Easy. And it says right there in his ad on Barnstormers that I pulled this off, for sale by proud owner. How cool is that? And he wanted $50,000 for a Very Easy. You know what my first thought was? You go, girl. I hope you get it, because that means my Very Easy is going to go up in price, right? But instead, as a community, on the Canard Forum, there's this big debate, and this guy says, that plane might be worth 25. And he starts putting it down, and people start glomming on, and next everybody's on the bandwagon going, yeah, who's this guy think he is selling his airplane for 50 grand? And I went, wait a minute. So we had a big debate about that, and that was back in 23. And I'm not going to tell you that I can single-handedly change the values of all the airplanes out there, but if we don't start that conversation, if we don't get people start thinking about it, it's never going to happen. You see that check? You see who it's made out to? Okay? Rutan Aircraft Flying Experience is a nonprofit. And to be honest, the only money it really gets is mine. Okay? We have some people that support us financially. We get donations. We have a lot of volunteers. That's what keeps the 501c3s intact and functioning. We don't have corporate sponsors. And one of my principles as the president is that we do not sell airplanes that are donated to us. If you donated your airplane to us, you could have sold it, you could have made money, but you gave us your airplane for a reason. You liked what we do, and we need to do what we say we're going to do, which is support, preserve, and promote Burt Rutan's home-built designs. But a couple weeks ago, we were approached by somebody, and I get these calls all the time. Hey, I'm looking for a good long easy. You know of any? And I answer, yeah, I know lots of good long easies, but I don't know if they're for sale. We're not brokers. We're not in the business of selling airplanes. We're a nonprofit. Well, this individual came around and said, hey, I really need an airplane. He ran a business. He was doing some government contract stuff. I won't name names, but he wanted one. He wanted a good one. He wanted it fast. And I said, we don't sell airplanes. So he went and looked at some airplanes, and he kept circling back around with me looking for free advice. I always say we need a 1-900 number or something. You call me for advice. It's $2.99 a minute, right? And finally, I asked our little board of directors, I said, hey, this guy's really wants a good airplane. We have 4 long easies. Our goal is to collect one flying example of every type, but we have multiple of some models, and we have a really nice one. And I know the donor, I remember him telling me, I won't mind if you sell this airplane because I know you guys need money. I said, should we consider this? And the resounding, opinion was, yeah, we need money. Money solves a lot of problems, and $95,000 is something we never dreamed we'd ever get. So this guy wanted this airplane so bad, he's texted me a picture of the check. It's made out to us. And I was like, holy cow. And then a weird thing happened. 2 days before we're supposed to get together and look at the airplane and all other stuff, he sends me this text. This big, long text, okay? And he says, I hope I'm not insulting you. I know you blah, 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 stuff. He goes, but he talked to a couple of other canard guys who said, I don't buy that thing. You can buy one for $30,000, put a new IO360 in a glass panel, and not pay that much. He said, after some discussion with 2 canard owners today, I'm more than hesitant to pay $95,000. I said, who in the heck did that, okay? So we went full circle back to 2023, okay? And I didn't respond to the guy. I sent him a link to this article. You ever read this article? My late friend Lance Hooley wrote it. It was published in Kit Planes. It's a fantastic article. And it basically says, if you find an airplane in a barn and you think you got a great deal, okay, by the time you finish refurbishing it, you're going to spend as much as you would if you just bought a nice one, okay? And everybody, you guys probably know that, all right? The guy responded back and said, yeah, it's a great article. I can't do anything but agree, but I still don't want to spend that kind of money. He still came up to Covington. He still looked at the airplane. And in the end, he went back to those guys the night before and came back the next morning and said, I talked to those guys again, and they said it's too much for a long easy. I said, oh, man. We could have had a comp. You know what real comps are? You buy houses, you get your house of real estate appraised. They use comparables. We could have a comparable for a long easy that's sold at $95,000. All right, well, we'll survive. But look at this. I saw this the other day on eBay. A Zenith, $118,000. Come on. Well, you're going to say, well, it's eBay. He's not going to get that. Okay. Look at this. A Tri-Pacer for $50,000. Oh my God. You know, in my mind, Tri-Pacers should sell for 10. I get it. And besides, who wants a Tri-Pacer? You know, what's the thing about Tri-Pacers? Don't let your friends see you flying one. And the weird thing about a Tri-Pacer, if you take the main gear off and turn it around, take the nose wheel off, put a tail wheel on it, it's a Pacer, and everybody goes, cool, nice airplane. But if you're a Tri-Pacer, they go, ha ha. So, but $50,000 for a Tri-Pacer. Well, that was on Facebook, and you're going to go, hey, who says he's going to get that? Well, look at this one. Here's a guy that wants to buy a 172, and he's willing to pay $150,000. Get out of here. $150,000 for a 172, and we can't sell a long easy for $95,000? A nice one? Okay, so in 23, I went off in part of my presentation. I told a story about a guy that I knew back in the day when I was in the skydiving business, Dick Ward. I had a twin Bonanza that I used to haul skydivers with. He loved the T-bone. He was frustrated with low asking prices. He literally called everybody in Trade a Plane and twisted their arm to double their prices. I'm not kidding you. When I bought my twin Bonanza, you could have bought one for $10,000. That's why we were jumping out of it. Skydivers would buy the cheapest piece of junk they could find because they just wanted to jump out of it, okay? Mine wasn't a piece of junk. I paid more than that for it. I actually paid $35,000 because it was in gorgeous shape. But you could buy them for nothing, okay? Dick Ward single-handedly raised the market value of all the twin Bonanzas. I'm not kidding you. And look what they sell for now. Okay. Now, one reason is the ones that are left are really nice airplanes. The Long Easy we had was a really nice airplane, okay? You still don't believe me that this works? Okay. I'm an L-39 guy. I fly L-39s. I teach in them, okay? This is I pulled this off of Wikipedia the other night, and I have no idea what date they're referring to, but back in the day when these things first started coming to the U.S., you could buy them for $50,000 in a crate. You know, put them together, they might be worth $100, $125. As more of them started flying, prices went up. People thought that's pretty cool, okay? Who flies L-39s? Okay? I'll tell you, doctors, lawyers, because these are the guys I teach. Doctors, lawyers, big business guys, and guys like me, retiring old airline pilots that want to go broke, right? Why? Who else can spend 150 gallons of jet fuel an hour, okay? So you'd think it's a pretty niche market, and those airplanes, you know, they're expensive to operate, so why would somebody pay a lot of money for them, right? Okay. Remember, we just saw somebody willing to pay $150,000, okay, for a Cessna 172. Right there, okay? Well, look at this. There's this company in Illinois named Code One. They got a booth here. They decided they were tired of seeing L-39's values down at the bottom of the market. And they started going out and buying really nice ones and fixing them up because who buys these airplanes? People that can afford them. That Wikipedia thing said they go for $200,000 to $300,000. Look at that price. And it says price reduced. You say, Richard, they're not getting that. They have to reduce it. Well, it was $485. Well, guess what? Here's another ad. They sold it. Not that jet, but another one that was $485. They have single-handedly raised the values of L-39s. Go out and try and find a really nice one now for less than $400,000. It ain't happening. And this, this is the airplane we're going to sell. It was really nice shape. Proven airplane. Look at that panel. There's $20,000 of avionics in that, okay? And we couldn't get 95 for it? Holy cow. That's it. I'm never going to say another word about this, folks, because if you guys want to give away your long easies, that's fine. Nothing I can do about it. But we're not giving away ours. We don't have to. They were donated to us. We're going to keep them unless somebody really writes us a big check. But when you decide at some point in your life that it's time to part with your airplane, remember this. You don't have to give them away, but you will give them away if you don't ask for more. So, another cool thing is going to happen today, just quick minutes. Later on today, Izzy Briggs, if you guys know him, showed up yesterday with a really weird airplane. And later today, he's going to show up with one that's even weirder. And it's going to be kind of a fun thing to have here at Oshkosh this year. And I'm not going to talk about it because we're going to get people to come out and talk to Izzy when he gets here. This is, well, I'll tell you what it is because he's not really have time. But this is Velocity. Used to belong to a company called Proxy Technologies. And it was a drone. It was actually like a competitor to the Predator back in the day. And Scott knows a lot about it. And Izzy called me up all excited about this Velocity he found, and the guy's going to lend it to us. And he's going to bring it to Oshkosh. And then I kind of burst his bubble, and I said, Izzy, we already got one. Back in 2018, we had that one donated. It's a sister ship to that thing. It's pretty cool. It's not quite a fly. It actually used to fly by itself. It was autonomous as opposed to driven by a guy in a cubicle like a Predator. And it's already out there on the line. And Izzy will be back here today with something even better. This is underneath ours. Everybody signed the airplane after its first autonomous flight. An old long easy guy, Fred Wimberly, some of y'all may remember him. He was the test pilot on it. He said, I wasn't no test pilot. I just sat there and watched it fly. It was kind of cool. So that's what Izzy's going to come back hopefully this afternoon with. Anybody know what that is? Yeah. That's a CM44. I'm kind of breaking the surprise here, but it's important that people know that he actually brought the Velocity in 2 days ago, spent the night yesterday. Him and Ivan went back to Meng, and they're coming back with this airplane. I don't know how much coffee that guy drinks, but the CM44 is kind of a big long easy that Bert built for a company called California Microwave. I believe there was two of them. And I remember this airplane. It was in Texas for a while. I flew formation on it when the guy brought it up to like a canard lunch that we had. And then it disappeared, and Izzy found it in Abilene, and he got it flying, and it'll be incredibly cool to have it as part of the RAFI display. So if he gets here today, you guys need to go pat him on the back. He has really busted his butt. And in the middle of all this, his other Defiance, he went back to Norway, got his other Defiant, threw it in a box, sent it across the ocean, and it's showing up next week or something like that. Like I said, man, the guy drinks too much coffee. So enough of that. This is the future to Rutan design part. We're going to talk about what makes a product successful, what makes a company successful, okay? What makes a good product is a good company, okay? And I asked AI, or what would define this stuff. It gave me this big long definition, all this stuff that if you've ever run a business, you already know all these things, okay? And we all know the answer why Rutan airplanes are where they are. Anybody? There's no business behind them. Bert got out of home builds, okay? Kind of hang on there for a while, just publishing the newsletter, and then after a while, his sights are on bigger and better things, and God bless him, we all know what he accomplished. But we as a brand, as a Rutan Home Built Designs, you can't pick up the phone and call anybody. So that's the answer. There's no successful company behind Rutan Designs anymore. So what do? We just give up? I don't know. Okay, anybody want to start a company on this? No. That's why I chose a nonprofit form for this, because there's no money in this for me, but somebody might want to do it. So I invited a couple people here, though, that I think have some very interesting perspectives that could relate to what it's going to take us to survive. This is the 10th anniversary of Rutan Aircraft Flying Experience, and we've accomplished a lot. We got 12 airplanes that fly donated to us, and a lot of you guys have heard all that. But what's going to happen in the next 10 years? Who's going to keep this going? So the next speaker is going to be Scott Swing, who now owns Velocity. And I hope to hear his story about Velocity and how they succeeded. They are basically between, in my opinion, RVs and Velocities, they're the top of the home builds out there, okay? Lots of Velocities, great airplanes, but what did it take for them to get to where they are, okay? So we can kind of compare it, like we know where we are, but if we decide that somebody sitting in the audience goes, maybe I'll start a Rutan company, you can listen to Scott talk about where they've been, how they got to where they are. So I'm going to invite Scott up here. You can take over, and you guys don't have to listen to me again for a while. There will be another guest speaker after that, but I'll introduce him when Scott's done. It's all yours, man.
All right. Hi, I'm Scott Swing. So let me get a little history here about Velocity. So I originally, with my father, came to Oshkosh, like it was 79 or so. I've been coming since I was little. And we were looking at the flight line, something to build together, father and son. And I was in grad school and wanted something to do while I was in school in Dayton there, at Wright State. And my dad thought the Polywagon was a good choice. And I looked at that Polywagon and I go, it doesn't look too good to me. It looks terrible to me. So and the Quickie was there that year. The Q2 with the Revmaster, and that was a really cool looking airplane. So yeah, and so we decided to build that at our house, and about 8 months later we flew it. In fact, first flight on that, my dad flew it because he had so much more experience than I did, and I had just got my license. And on the second flight, he took the ballast out and put the CG at the forward end and ended up breaking the propeller. So he told me it was the hardest plane he ever landed in his life, which made me nervous because I just got my license. So I went to get some time in a Citabria to learn how to do it. But we found the problems with it and fixed all that. And I still have that plane. Actually, I sold it when I got married because I needed some money. And so I sold it to a guy named Harry Scarf. He flew it for a while, flipped it over, broke the tail off, and sold it back to me. I fixed it, and I still have it. And it's sort of a sentimental thing to me. So whether I sell it or not, somebody have to give me a lot of money to buy it because it really means a lot to me. And in worst case, I put it up in the building or something to hang it, like I do with a friend of mine who just passed away that was also a Velocity guy but had a Cherry, and he had prostate cancer and passed away and gave it to me. So I got 2 airplanes here. Only ones I can afford. I don't think I can afford a Velocity, actually, to tell you the truth. But anyway, when we got around to building parts, like I designed the retract system for the aircraft, we bought Velocity. I went down there with a Mooney, flew the airplane, and I couldn't believe how much better it was than the Mooney, so we bought it. And put that together, had a shop fire, burned it all up, and Danny felt bad for us. Danny Mayer, the designer of the Velocity, sold us another kit for his cost, which was really nice of him to do. Felt bad for us about the fire, and we built the next one. And later on brought it down, and he gave his blessing on the retract system, and it went on from there. Danny decided to sell, and so we said, yeah, I'm kind of involved in Velocities right now. Maybe it's a good thing to do. So we bought the company back in '92, and so we've had it ever since. We've been there a lot. And when we first started, it was like, okay, to run a business, you need somebody who is a doer, somebody who can build something, somebody who likes to work with their hands, somebody who's organized, that would be my mother, and somebody who's an entrepreneur, somebody who thinks ahead, and that's my father. So we started it, and a few years later, to spruce things up. Now, at the time, Danny didn't market the plane at all. In fact, you would go to him, and he would look at you and go, nope, no plane for you, right? I'm not going to sell you a plane. I don't think you're worthy. And it didn't matter to him. And my dad's more of a salesman, so we sold a lot more than Danny did and paid him off in a year or two. And then you know, as you go on in the business, you got to spruce things up. You got to like do something. So if you want to run a business, you want to change something to give a new person a reason to buy it and not to buy the old airplane, right? I'm going to buy somebody's airplane. Why should I buy a new one? Well, because here's what the new ones have. So we would come out with some modifications. So in 94, we came up with the elite doors to make it easier to get in the airplane. Again, huge amount of sale increase from that. And then a few years later, well, Danny had already had a 173. He called it a 173. It had a bigger wing, bigger canard. We decided, well, why don't we make a bigger fuselage, call it the XL, extra large, and do that. So we built a bigger fuselage, put those wings on it, and as we all know, pilots, instead of being an average 170 pounds like they were years ago, are now heavier, and it was much more comfortable ride in the XL. And the bigger the airplane gets, the more stable it is, and the less fun it is. But it's a good cross-country airplane. And then we did things like, again, trying to keep ahead of things and make sure we can sell more airplanes. We came up with the Dash 5 version, which put a bench seat in the back of the XL. It's 49 inches wide. You could do adult and 2 kids, and that was a big draw. Bigger brakes, a little bit bigger engine, 300 horse Lycoming or a 310 Continental instead of a 260. Again, another jump in sales. Jump forward a few more years, back to 2012. We always wanted to do a twin, so we figured out the twin. I had some friends at Boeing and friends, aerodynamic friends, who designed the tail, and then Boeing for the spar of the tail, and because we had worked with Boeing before, and so we did the twin. And so what I'm trying to say is, to make a company successful, you need to innovate. You need to change some things. You need to make it better. You need to have good customer service. People call that parts. And like we talked about here, orphaned airplanes are tough because, you know, it's hard for people to get parts. They have to build their own, or they don't do a very good job of it, or they fly it when they should have a new part and they don't. You know, the gear's a little bit shaky, but I went ahead and flew it anyway, and then it broke off. And then I'm a statistic. Or, you know, my brakes are faulty, but I don't have the money to do it, or something like that would happen. So yeah, so you gotta kind of keep ahead of things and keep going. But customer service is a big part, and you know, we try to do our best all the time to make people happy, to love their aircraft, to try to make them better. People will say, hey, my airplane stalls at, or pitch bucks at, you know, 75, and I go, well, it shouldn't do that. Let's fix it and find out why it does that. Or my ailerons feel super heavy, or they're snatchy, or things like that happen, and the person never came. You know, they took the training course, but then they're flying the airplanes thinking it's okay to be that way, and that's just not safe. So, or you talk about fuel systems and the changes we made in the fuel system to make it more reliable. Just on and on, trying to make it better. And our customers help with that too. You don't just want to ignore your customers, because they have good ideas as well. They have terrible ideas too, but some of the ideas are good, and so you want to keep up with that and make changes as you think need to be done. Anyway, that's how you keep it going. That's what we've kept it going. And my father's now 88 years old, going to be 89 in October. I'm 67 now. My son is also working for us, and he's part owner actually, and he's like 32, and so he's the one to keep it going. I'm getting kind of old for this, but then I say that, and my dad still works every day and comes into the shop and keeps us going. So that's kind of where we're at this point. Do you have anything else you want to
talk about the demographics of how your customer base has changed?
Oh yeah. So back in probably the 90s, and even earlier than that, in the 80s, lots of creative people, lots of builders, lots of people good with their hands that wanted to build something. A middle class that had the money, had a little bit of time, and wanted to build something. And so we sold just kits, and that was very, very good for us money-wise, because you're gonna mark it up 100% or so. And make good money on that. You don't have to deal with things except for builder support and answer questions and supply parts and things like that. But then you get to the point where those sales start dropping off, and you find out that those people are going away. There's not as many people that will build, especially a plans-built aircraft. It's just too much work for them. They don't have the time. They would rather just have one. And so we started to do the Builder Assist program, or the fast build. So we got the 51% rule thing going, and we decided to build part of the aircraft for the customer, so when they get it, it takes them less time to finish it up. And we've been doing that for a long time. But there becomes a point, for us especially, that we really need to do something big and spend some money or get some money to be able to do it. And I think the future in any kit-built aircraft is going to be how quick it is to put together. And I think nowadays, with the way you can go with the 5-axis milling machines right to the molds without having to start with a plug, you can get there a lot quicker. And I know a few years ago we thought about doing it. It was going to be around $1 million to retool the whole airplane, make it symmetrical, because the airplane's not symmetrical. It's slightly different side to side. If you look at it really close, you can see that. And that's kind of what we want to do next, because if we can make the airplane really simple to build, then more people might want to do it. They don't want to take the time to do all the finish work and all that. So the idea is to have a plane that's pre-drilled, you Cleco it together, check the fit, make sure everything's good, and then you glue it together. And that's kind of the thing we want to do. Yeah, question?
As far as looking to the future, I couldn't help but notice the twin diesel-powered velocity twin inside of Delta Hawk.
Right, well, yeah, so back when we first did the twin, Al, who's the guy who owns Delta Hawk, wanted the twin. He wanted the twin. I said, why don't you buy the company? But he didn't want that. He had bought the Delta Hawk engine company and decided to build a V-twin to put those engines in. So I asked him, well, how heavy are these engines? And he was telling me how heavy they should be, because they weren't, the ones they were going to put in weren't really done yet. So we added a couple inches of cord to the wing to handle the extra weight in the back. And as the final engines came, they were much heavier than that. So fast forward a little later, they went to fly it, and the plane was really aft. And so recently, to fix the, I went up there and we chopped about 6 inches of side off the canard to shift the center lift back a little bit further. Did the VGs on the wing itself only, and got it to the point where it would fly fine. It's a great flying airplane, but it is heavy. And in fact, it's so heavy that it's probably close to 800 pounds heavier than a normal V-twin. So some of that is just all the changes they've made. And the guy who built it also passed away of brain cancer, but he built it in our shop for Al at the time, and a beautiful airplane and all. It's just heavy. So now they're taking a lot of weight out of the engines, also making they've got an RV-14, I guess, there with the engines, much more compact. They don't have radiators inside the tail, scoops everywhere, which hurts them a lot. So I think there's something to that. But right now, for me, the engine's just a little bit too heavy until they get the new ones out, and a little bit underpowered for the weight that it has. And so once they fix that, that's fine. I'm an old school guy. I like an aircraft engine that's been around for a while, that I know the deficiencies, I know the good things about it, and I know what to expect. So I'm not, anymore I test fly an airplane, I won't do some new design. I just won't do it. You get older and get a little wiser, maybe a little bit more conservative, and you don't do that kind of stuff anymore. Recently flew the V-twin with the turbine engines, and that's cool. So again, coming up with something new, that totally impractical but really cool airplane. Really lightweight engines. If somebody comes up with a good turbine that's fuel efficient, that'd be great in a long easy, great in a newer long easy, like you said, a kit version of the plane. But yeah, it does take somebody to go ahead and take it on. Like when the Quickie went away, same thing happened to it. Somebody had bought some, but they didn't have a business plan out. They just bought some molds and they were going to try to do it again. And there were a lot of improvements you could make on the Quickie as well, and nobody to really take it forward and spend the money. Again, I asked the kids one time. I was talking to a few Boy Scouts, and I was asking them how planes fly. Anybody know how planes fly? Money. Exactly. They were telling me Bernoulli and lift and all this stuff, and money makes planes fly. So it takes some money sometimes, and if you don't have it, and you don't have family money, let's say, to help, that's an issue. Because through the years, we've had lean times, no doubt about it. And to tell you the truth, some of the ways we got ahead of that is that somebody wanted to invest in the company or wanted to buy part of the company, whatever, and they would give us a deposit, and then they would go away, and we get the money. So we do a new project with that money. That kind of thing would happen. But yeah, if you can't put, well, for instance, the Delta Hawk, Al, he put way more than $100 million into that project. And how many people can do that? You know, very few people can do that. So, you know, good ideas are great, but it takes, like I said, it takes somebody who's good with their hands, somebody who can build it, somebody who can organize, and somebody who can think ahead. What's the next project? What's the next thing we're going to do to make our product, you know, worthy of buying instead of buying the older version? You know, you got to make it. Now we have lots of planes that transfer hands, and that's a problem too, because you'll find customers who just buy the aircraft and don't know anything about it, and don't come to the shop to get some training and to learn about it. You know, the systems of the aircraft and all that, and they end up being much less safe. And that's so we try to you know, help them do that, because a lot of companies now, if you buy somebody else's aircraft, they won't support you. They're like, done. You know, you didn't make any money off of you, you're not going to do it. And we have a small fee for those people who buy somebody else's aircraft, but we will support it. You know, parts, conversations, build. You know, people buy some project that's part way done, and they pay a fee. I think it's $400 is all it is, because now we got to teach the new owner how to build the plane. And there are a lot of people out there that own them. Not a lot of people that have built them anymore, because they've changed hands so many times. And that's always going to be an issue, but that's why we're here to help. And like, you know, 3 years ago, I think during COVID time, some of our airplanes would go for $350,000, $400,000 back then. So the prices went way up. But they knew they weren't orphaned. They could work, they could get support, things like that for them. So that's where we are. You know, we're still around. We're still plugging away. Like I said, it's a family business, so it's not owned by some big corporation that has a lot of money to burn and to spend. We have to do things to make sure that we can make it and make a living. So yeah, we don't make a lot of money, but we make enough, and that's all we care. Yes.
Would Velocity ever consider building a kit long easy?
Well, we thought about doing a two-seat, narrowing the airplane up a little bit and building something like that. We never got around. We actually did once. So speaking of the Aero canard, so we knew the guys at Aero canard. In fact, they built. I did a plane for a retired airline captain, built a Velocity in about 70 working days. And I had the guys over at Aero canard build the canard. They built the wings for me, and then send them in all finished up so we could put the plane together as quick as we could. And so they had, at the time, they had a price of like $19,000 or something like that for the kit. So we built an SUV that had yoke controls. I had to design that too, that was fun. Yoke controls, single door, two-seat aircraft. We called it was a side-by-side, but we called it that. So it was really just a Velocity with one door, yoke controls, and 160 horse Lycoming in it, and with a constant speed propeller. And it really was good, sold a lot, but we priced it right there at the same price, $18,000, $19,000. And we were much more well known at the time. And so we got to sell a lot of the SUVs. But a lot of people would get the plane and say, can I put another door in it? Or can I convert it back to a stick? Or can I do all these things? And sure you can. You know, we're there to help you, but yeah, you got an SUV, and that's what we called it, the SUV. But yeah, so we did a two-seat. It didn't sell the greatest because people would just put 4 seats in it anyway. You know, because it's big enough to put 4 seats in. We thought 2 seats in a big baggage compartment would be good, but it kind of went away to the wayside. I think it's definitely a market for it, as long as it's really easy to build, and that's where you need to have the new, use the new technology to get the molds made so you can build it quickly, and that's what you need. People want something now. It's like a microwave. I want to have it now. I don't want to wait. So. Any other questions? Yes. You know, I don't know. That's coming up, I guess, on the 26th, Mosaic. They're going to talk about Mosaic. I understand it allows a person who owns a home built to actually get the repairman certificate. Is that correct? I mean, he can talk about it more than I can. I was hoping it would be that we could build an airplane for somebody and sell it. That's what I would hope. But right now, we can't. There are people around the country that do, and we talked about some of them, but we can't do that at the factory, nor do we want to. There's a lot of pluses in having somebody there at the shop build it with you, because they learn how difficult it can be, because they don't just say, here, build it. Why is it taking this long? Or why is it costing this much? Or, you know, all those questions. Well, come and work with us for a while. And then they want to put a new engine in it. So now we got to redesign everything. We had to do the UL engines in the twin. The UL is an electric engine as far as I'm concerned. Everything is electric. So you got fuel pumps that are electric. You got your ignition system is electric. Everything's electric. So you got to make sure that if something, you know, your power goes down, the engine keeps running, you know. And it's not really as big a deal on a single as it is on a twin, believe it or not, on takeoff. That's the biggest problem. In the air, you're okay, but on takeoff. So yeah, so he could probably address that. Anybody else have any questions for me? I'll be around here for a while, so if you think of anything, just let me know. There you go.
Thank you very much, Scott. Appreciate that. Anybody hear anything that sounds familiar? Okay. Yeah. Well, customer service. You know, who's the customers now? Well, the canard owners. Okay, you guys are kind of, you know, the front line of what's going on out there. There's no business, but we as individual easy owners can kind of fill that role. But a lot of what he said, it holds true, and we know why. There's no business behind us. You can't call anybody else for help. And the biggest thing is the demographics have changed. The RVs kind of did that with their quick build because they got easier and easier and easier to build. And what we hear all the time is, man, I'd love to have a long easy, but it takes too long to build one. So we always kick around down there at Jet Guys this thing we call Long Easy 2.0. Take a Long Easy, put all the things we know that make it a better airplane, and make it a molded fuselage, something that comes out. You know, Ronenberg tried that with the Berkut, but that's a very complicated airplane because there's gear and stuff. But you just make a simple airplane, okay, with all the neat features in a kind of a quick glue together type thing. Well, believe it or not, there's somebody that's kind of doing that, okay? So our next guest speaker, this guy I've known for several years, Meng. Owns the rights to the Aero canard. And he's making parts for the Aero canard in his little factory in China, pulling out molded parts. And if you come up here and look later, some of these parts that these guys are making, because he makes parts for all kinds of things. These are beautiful parts, man. This is good stuff, really good stuff. So he's got a little booth there right by Velocity. But Moo, come on up and tell us about your business and what you're doing. Because Moo has got probably the best chance of building another canard type airplane that looks like ours in a quick build kind of setup. So here you go.
Hey, thank you. And I guess here everybody want to know what we do. And I purchased the company Aero Canard in 2020. After I purchased, unfortunately, the person sold to me get a cancer. I supposed to learn how to build the stuff from him, but he passed away. He passed away. So after that, then we started looking for somebody can help us. So I talked to a few people, and I even talked to Ryszard, say, hey, who can do this for us? Then we found out it's very difficult finding young people have knowledge for composite, or we can training them. This is very difficult. So That time, I think, what the heck? Why we do that? So I went to China. I saw, you guys know that many years ago, China don't have a car industry. Today, Chinese car industry like a crazy, okay? Compared to last month, we visited China. We were talking about buy a car for for $5,000. It's a great car. So that time I would think we should do some way differently to do this, because people here does not want to spend a lot of time, like Scott said, want to build stuff themselves. They want the things quickly. How we do this? So I set a factory in China. We purchased a whole bunch of machines, CNC, 5X, rotor, everything, you name it. So when we start a new production, we want to reduce the cost and quickly to turn around. So this is the new business model we have. So we team up with Carnegie Mellon, the robot team. They provide a complete service for robot solution, for grinding, trimming, polishing, for AI solution for that service. Then work with the IBM and Microsoft to
Sorry. You were talking 10 minutes ago, and I have to start in 5 minutes. Can I bump your computer and set mine up, please?
Yes, that's fine. Sorry. After that, so what we want to do is customer with Cozy, they want to build, they can provide data for us. We can grab the data. We can quickly, in our China manufacturing, to produce the parts. You know, compared to US, you know, I have a gentleman working for me. He asking for $1,000 a day. I had to pay him. There's no way that parts, you know, we all know that you can't sell parts for hiring somebody for $1,000 a day. So our goal is all the kit owner, if they have a plan, they can provide us technical data to us. We can produce the parts for them. So that way, we believe that our cost is 10 times cheaper than somebody built it here. You know, that's, we have a 1996 Grand Champion aircraft in our shop in China. That aircraft built for 15 years. I just wondering how many people you get a kit, you want to sit there for 15 years to build them. So our goal is provide the parts almost like the old days computer would say plug and play. That's why I talked to Ryszard, and we talked about the use of his facility. We will provide the parts, and Ryszard's team has lots of people know how to put things together relatively easily. Probably 6 months that you can build an aircraft instead of 15 years. So if you guys have any future product you think, kit, you want to build a composite, you can talk to us. We can build for you. We have a very skillful composite people. We have a great equipment, can do all that stuff. Eventually, we will move back to US. But, you know, right now, we still work out, it's like everything else, right? You gotta work out the bug. We will work with everybody. Okay, you just tell us what do you want to build, we will build for you. Thank you.
I said we weren't going to use the whole time, but we're running really long. At some point, if either here or go by Moo's display and look at this picture right here. If you guys are on Facebook or some of the social media stuff, have you seen their ads for those sanding robots? Oh my God, they got these robots and you program them and they just go in there. Man, you can imagine sanding all the micro on your Long Easy, okay? And you just sit there and program a computer, walk away, go eat dinner, and that thing's making perfect curves, you know? So,
What happens when they get
Where's the spoon?
huh?
What happens when they get itchy?
Yeah, I don't know.
Where's the spoon?
Right, actually, it's kind of right between us and Velocity on that main thing. You'll see a model of a Velocity sitting out there, or an Aero canard kind of airplane. Moon and I have been kicking around lots of ideas, okay? And what amazes me is this AI technology. Like you said, you come to him and say, I need this part made for my Long Easy, and with the technology today, they can make that one-off part. Now, factories make mass production, right? But with technology today, they don't have to mass produce things. And he's really not in the airplane kit business. He's in the composite stuff business. That's the stuff, not airplane stuff. He'll make anything for anybody. You think you're making parts for Icon now, aren't you? Yeah. So they came to him because their cost of production in the U.S. is through the roof, you know? So that's something that, you know, maybe some young person will be inspired and go, hey, I want to do that. I want to take the Long Easy to the next level, and then talks to a guy like Moo and uses 3D printing and all this technology that me, pilot small brain, can't even understand. It's pretty fascinating. Robert Harris down at Covington is going to turn 75 this year. He's decided he's going to shut down the part of his business that does condition inspections and repairs and mods for people because he wants to focus on the jets. One thing Moo and I frustratingly talk about is, I thought, well, I'm going to start another little shop on the side of Robert, use him as a consultant, hire some people, teach him how to build Long Easy parts. Find those people today. Skilled labor is a real tough spot. And unless you're going to go full scale and you have a lot of capital behind you, small shop stuff like that, even just to let mom and pop A&P shops, they're kind of going away. We're in a real tough spot with this, folks. So I'm going to wrap this up by thanking our guest speakers. I hope you guys enjoyed their talks. I'm just thrilled this Velocity is doing so well. They've got beautiful airplanes. They've got a great business going. I'm frustrated that Long Easies aren't doing the same thing, but it's not going to be me that's going to take it up. It's not going to be Ken. It's going to be that kid that walks into your shop that you says, hey man, that's a cool airplane, tell me about it, and he gets that idea. So we're all ambassadors of this. The future of Rutan Designs is us and the way we handle it in the future until someone else comes along and says, you know, I'm going to be that guy. You know, the next Burt Rutan or something. So stop by Moo's display, talk to him a little bit, see the parts, whatever, and we're gonna call it a day. Thank you guys for coming. I really appreciate you putting up with this for an hour and a half.